Well, hallelujah. It is good to have live music in the house, isn't it? Thank you, Aaron. Woo! Good morning, beloved community. How are you today? Good. Let's begin by taking a few breaths, shall we? Exhale first. Take a deep breath in. And let go. Another deep breath in. And let go. One more deep breath. Breathe in. And let go. And so, as you know, our theme for the month across Centers for Spiritual Living, nation and globe-wide, is reaching higher. And this week's theme is And Still I Rise, which turns out is the title of a poem by Maya Angelou. So we're going to start there. So I'm going to read you And Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. And as you listen to this, I really want you to recognize and think about the fact that this is written by a black woman who was born in the 1930s, I believe. So just keep that in mind. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you? Did I just go out? No, there it is. Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like the moons and like the suns, with the certainty of tides. Just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Do you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes? Shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of a slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Whew. So just breathe those words in, yeah? And still I rise. And I love this title because it really just makes me think again about this whole conversation we've been having about reaching higher, about rising up above circumstances, about rising up above history, about rising up when we meet what's in front of us. And I was watching I was doing a little binge watching on my days off this week, and I was watching a program. And this line came up in a show I was watching that just kind of went, you know when you hear something and it just goes, whoa. And it says this: that which is otherwise terrible is good because of where it's headed. I'm going to say that again. That which is otherwise terrible is good because of where it is headed. Right? And so I was thinking about this in this context of this reaching higher and then still I rise, and thinking about this idea that there is a call in all that is difficult. There is a call in all that is struggle. There is a call that comes from pain and turmoil. And as we look out into the world and the environmental collapse and racism and oppression and economic disparity and all of the things that seem to be terrible in front of us, if we take what is terrible and recognize that there is an invitation to the good, that's the opening for us, right? Is to realize that, and I know that I've said this many times before, and I know many of you have probably experienced this in your own life, but sometimes it's the most difficult moments, it's the ugliest and most painful things in our lives that actually birth us into the newest, the next, the what is emerging. And so what if we look out at the world right now and see all that appears to be terrible and realize that it's the invitation for the good? That everything that we are seeing is the invitation asking us, as we've been saying all month, who will you be in the face of this? Who will you be in the face of racism? Who will you be in the face of economic collapse? Who will you be in the face of pain? Who will you be in the face of disease? Who will you be in the face of poverty? When you see that which appears to be terrible, the invitation is then for you, who will you be? Will you be the one who brings about good? Will you be the one who looks for the solution? Will you be the one who responds instead of reacts? Because the purpose, as we've been talking all month, of our spiritual practice is to train us, to ground us, to give us a solid awareness of a deeper truth that goes beyond circumstance, that allows something strong deeply within us to rise up when without it we might otherwise be knocked over. And I realize that we talk a lot about all of these spiritual qualities and spiritual practice and finding your authentic self and reaching for the good and all these wonderful ideas. And then we have this world of effects and affairs and all the stuff that's happening around us. And I realize that it's like spiritual practice is like an anchor, and that you are a boat in a storm. And that in order to remain still, in order to not be blown off course, in order to not be taken in a completely different direction, we have to have a connection to a grounding source, to an awareness of the truth of who we are and what is rising up from us. And like in Maya Angelou's poem, when history, when oppression, when projection, when all of the things point their finger at you and tell you who you're supposed to be, do you shrink or do you rise? Right? If we are tapped into a truth that tells us that there is an authentic self inside of us that has never been hurt or harmed in any way, that there is an authentic being within each one of us who lives in each and every one of us, that there's a place for us to connect to that can be our source in times of struggle. To realize that we can be the place where transformation happens, that we can be the place where something new rises up from what is. And I believe that as in the world that we are currently living in, there's a lot of reaction. There's a lot of desire to run away, to avoid, to not look at. And I believe that the invitation here is for us to lean into that which we see as terrible or uncomfortable, to lean into that which is rising up as an invitation for us to become stronger, not to become smaller or weaker or step back. And what would it look like for us to recognize that our spiritual practice is about giving us the strength and the fortitude to meet what is in front of us? What if we lived our lives as if everything that comes at us is an invitation to become something more than we've ever been before? But that takes a deep willingness to be with the ground and the truth of who we are first, as a priority. So that when we see the ugliness and that which is terrible, and when we meet racism, or when we run into illness, when we run into these things that are coming at us, that we aren't reactive. Because if we meet hate with hate, what do we create more of? If we meet anger with anger, what do we create more of? Right? And so if we have to, I think it's Martin Luther King that says, darkness cannot put out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot put out hate. Only love can do that. And we talk a lot about love as this spiritual quality, that God is love, love is all there is. And I think that we oftentimes put this idea of human love into that definition of what we think love is. And I really want us to think about love as being an energy that is present in the universe that draws things together. Ooh, you like that. Good. That love is an energy in the universe that draws things together. I believe someone by the name of Albert Einstein had a similar thinking about love. That Einstein believed that love and gravity and magnetism and the forces of the universe might be synonymous with each other. That what if love and gravity are the same thing? What if it's gravity, or what if it's love that pulls planets and stars and particles in orbit with each other? And what if it's that same energy that draws us together? What if love is something so incredibly strong and powerful that it can change the shape of space and time around us? And one of the things that I like to play with in my own mind about this idea that we talk about in Science of Mind a lot about manifestation or creating our desires is that I think about love and consciousness as being this sort of, if you think about how physicists describe the fabric of space-time, that it's just a field of infinite connection. And that when a planet or something has more and more and more gravity, it's like you're setting a ball on that fabric and it creates a dip that kind of goes down. And so gravity is actually about things rolling downhill, in a sense, towards something. And so I realized that what if our prayer, what if our practice, what if our meditation is about getting us so in tune with love that the nature of love and that the energy of what we create around us all kind of rolls downhill in our direction. And that what if each one of us could be such a force of love in the world that we change the shape of space as we walk through it? That when you enter a room, the feeling changes. That when you meet someone in their anger or their whatever, and you show up with love, something is different. You change the shape of the space based on the energy that you bring in. And that's partially what I hear in Maya Angelou's poem, is that she's saying all of these different things. When you see me this, does this disturb you? When you show me all of these things, I rise. I have gravity. I am bigger than your projection. I was listening to I've been listening recently to some recordings of Ernest Holmes. Did you know Ernest Holmes is on iTunes now? Who knew? So Ernest Holmes is on iTunes. You can look up this thing called Life. It's his old radio show from the 20s and 30s, and the whole thing's on iTunes. It's great. And I was listening to Ernest, and he was giving this great metaphor of one of the parables that Jesus tells of the workers in the vineyard. And that the owner of the vineyard offers a penny a day for everyone who comes and works. And there's a group of laborers who come in the morning, and then there's some who come in the afternoon, and then there's some who come at the 11th hour at the very end of the day. And at the end of the day, he gives a penny to all of the workers. And those who were there in the beginning of the day said, "That's not fair. We were here all day and they just showed up. How come they get the same as we do?" And the most interesting piece of that story is the vineyard owner's response. And he says, "Is your eye evil because I am good? I am being generous. I am giving of what I have freely to those who need it in an equitable way, not in an equal way. But when you see that I am giving generously, you look at me and you see something bad. You have a thought that happens in your mind that makes this generosity wrong. Right? Is your eye evil because mine is good? What a fascinating concept. Right? That when we walk in the world and we show up with love and we show up with generosity and we show up with the willingness to just look for God, and then the world looks at us like, you people are crazy. Everything is so horrible. How can this be God? Well, maybe it's God because that which is otherwise terrible is good because of where it's headed. And I really believe in the long arc of the universe leads towards justice. I believe that the long arc of the universe leads towards the good. It appears that the long arc of the universe leads through evolution, always becoming more complex, always becoming more of itself. It's been happening for 14 billion years. And yet in that, there's cataclysm, and there's catastrophe, and there's shift, and there's change, and there's breakdown, and there's pain. But every time that happens, something new emerges out of what was left. And so what if we're living through a world that looks terrible, but actually what is happening is that the good is beginning to reveal itself? On the drive over here today, I was thinking about over a year ago now with the murder of George Floyd. That was absolutely terrible. And yet, because of his death, there was an uprising in this country. And that the Black Lives Matter movement took to the streets. And the conversation about race that we have not been having started to happen. What was otherwise absolutely terrible could be good because of where it's headed. And that's not to take away from the terribleness of what's terrible, but it's to say I have to choose what I'm going to look at. I have to choose what I'm going to cultivate and create more of. And I can look at what's wrong, or I can look at what's possible. I can look at what has happened, or I can look at where it could go. I can shrink, or I can rise. And so as we think into our own lives, as we think into the world, as we think into our experiences walking through day by day, what would it mean for you to continuously have this mantra of, and still I rise? That when something or someone comes at you and says, you are this, you are that, you are wrong, you are small, you are whatever, you say, oh yeah? Well, here am I. And last week I talked about this idea that we need to look at ourselves as being here in this world at this moment in history on purpose. That none of this is here happening to you, that you came here for this. What if you were born to be alive right now? And that the entire world that you are living in is giving you a very specific invitation saying, what will you rise up and stand for? Because if you've paid attention at all in the last period of time, an invitation has shown up for every single one of us. We've all looked out into the world and seen something in our own lives or in the collective that seems terrible. If you can see it, it's yours. Rise up. Stand up. Use it as an invitation to bring the authenticity of who you are, the gifts that you have to bring, the message that you have to share. Because I do believe that there is a world emerging in front of us that we are calling in, that is part of Centers for Spiritual Living's declaration of who and what we stand for, that we are here to vision and call in and be for a world that works for everyone. In order to get to a world that works for everyone, we have to acknowledge what parts of the world are not working for everyone, for individuals, for groups. We have to address what's not working in order to get to where we want to go. That what's not working is the invitation of what needs to be done. You know, in metaphysics, when we look at our bodies, any pain or difficulty that shows up in the body is simply an emergency light saying, hey, pay attention. You need to make a change. Something is wrong. And so when pain shows up in the world, it's the same thing. It's the check engine light. You know, it's like, hey, emergency, you got to check this thing out, because if you don't deal with this, eventually this is going to stop working. And so live your life as if you are an answer to the prayer that the world is crying out. That the invitation to rise is the invitation to live into what you are here for. And I do believe that we are here on purpose, my friends, and that it is up to us to rise up, to be more, to be the ones who are looking from a new perspective. What if everything that comes your way is an invitation? What you do with that invitation is up to you. So take a deep breath and let go. Take another deep breath in and let go. I'm going to invite the practitioners and ministers in the room to stand and surround this space. As I invite the rest of us to just take another deep breath, I want to do something here for a moment, and I invite you to just rub your hands together a little bit. And then pull your hands apart until you can just sort of feel that tingling or that buzzing energy. And what I want you to do is place your hands out in front of you like you are about to press hands with someone else. And take another deep breath in. And right where you are with your hands in front of you, I just want you to imagine that there is a presence standing right in front of you. That this one who is standing before you is the one who is always with you, saying, "Come, be me. Come be me. Rise up into what's possible." And I want you to feel that there is an invitation right in front of you, coming from the world, coming from your higher self, coming from this presence. And imagine that you can feel their hands pressing against yours and whispering the words saying, "Come, come be me." And in that invitation, in your heart, in your mind, ask, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? What is my invitation? And so take another deep breath. And so as we breathe together, my friends, let us just remember that there is one seamless presence that is living and breathing throughout the entirety of the universe. That this one has, was, and will be throughout all of space and time, across all possible timelines, forever and ever expanding. One life, I call it God. But more than that, let us recognize and remember that it is the universe, it is life, it is energy, it is consciousness, and it is who we are. That each one of us is the divine life manifest here on this earth for the purpose of co-creating, for the purpose of allowing, for the purpose of being, for the purpose of rising up. Can we feel and know and remember that each one of us has risen up through 14 billion years of evolution to be right here, right now for this? And so let us claim, know, and declare for ourselves that each one of us is a living prayer, and that the world is crying out, giving us its invitation, and that there is a presence that goes before us, always saying, "Come, be me." And so we tune into that awareness, we listen to the call, and we say yes. That in the face of all that is terrible, I will rise up and be the place where the good emerges. Because I am a place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. Each one of us can and will be the place where God shows up when we choose to do so. And so in this moment, let us just take another deep breath in and feel that we can be grateful. That we are connected to a power that is greater than we are, that is living us, that is breathing us, that is unfolding in everyone and everything always. And that in the long arc of the universe, the greater, the good, the perfect, and the beautiful will reveal itself. And yet we have to be the place, the ones to choose it. And so for all of this and so much more, I just say yes. And so it is. Thank you, my friends.